It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to yet another Kicking It session. Today I've got Joelle, Venezuela Dash Advocate. We're going to talk to him. I actually was introduced to him by Phil Kennedy, so probably a guy I need to talk to. Joelle, how are you, man, this morning?
I'm doing pretty great.
Good.
There's not a lot I could complain about. I mean, there is, but I don't.
Yeah. How are you? So what state are you in? You're in New Hampshire?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you guys doing the whole shelter in place lockdown stuff, or has that lifted?
Not really. I mean, it's been everywhere has pretty much had some kind of thing going on. Here it's been pretty mild. Like people still can basically go out and do whatever they want.
Okay.
There's a few basically like restaurants and salons and gyms are still sort of closed to in-person traffic. But other than that, life is pretty much as normal. So as much as I'm annoyed at, not being able to go out for a pint, it's, things could be a whole lot worse. So
all right, well,
count
that's
your
good.
blessings.
Good for you, man. Good, because in Michigan, things are still locked down.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
maybe we can talk about that, because I did see that. I think you're kind of opposed to this whole lockdown thing, and maybe we can dibble and dabble in the coronavirus subject as well. But primarily today, guys, we're going to be talking about crypto. And I titled this Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Crypto, why crypto is more important than ever in today's climate. Before we start, though, the song, Judas Priest, Breaking the Law. Why that song?
Yeah, it's fun to kind of give a little bit of an edge to the whole thing. I mean, a lot of times you can be completely peaceful, do whatever you want, just be a great person. And then because of strange circumstances, you just find yourself on the wrong side of the law. And so, for example, you can be, you just go to the park and play with your kids every day. And then, one day you're smashing into the pavement in cuffs and your kids are screaming. They haul you away because, hey, guess what? You shouldn't have been playing in the park.
I saw that happen in, was it
Colorado,
Idaho, or where was it?
I think that one was Colorado. There's been a
Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand, man. And speaking of breaking the law, we're talking cryptos today, guys. And I don't know, you can give the audience a little bit of background about yourself, how long you've been in crypto. You're really a Dash advocate. And I was watching your video clip on CNN because, guys, he was on CNN for a episode. And you really kind of compared the cons of using Bitcoin as an everyday cash settlement type of layer protocol, and I agree with you on that. It hasn't always been that way. At least the vision of Bitcoin from the community's perspective has not always been that of maybe a store of value. It's been kind of a hybrid, but more so leaning toward using it as a day-to-day cashless, cashless system. So kind of give me your feedback, your background on crypto. How long have you been in the space, and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in space about 7 years, I think. It was around 2013, mid-2013. I was moving up here to New Hampshire. I stopped in Chicago and had pizza with a friend, and he said, hey, can I pay you back in Bitcoin? And I heard about this kind of in the sort of Ron Paul type circles before, but I never really looked into it too much. And then I got some and then started sort of using it, and it sort of blew me away. It kind of clicked the peer-to-peer element of this, that you can send anyone, any valuation, anytime, anywhere in the world, and no one has to give you permission. There's no let me sign up first. Let's jump through these hoops. And just like the raw human potential of that sort of blew me away. And so I've sort of been involved ever since. And in late 2015, I decided I was going to put this whole peer-to-peer electronic cash business to the test. And so I stopped accepting payments in fiat currency and just went all crypto. And then by the middle of 2016, I closed my bank account as well. And I still don't have a bank account to this day, and still kind of living that whole thing.
Wow, that is amazing. One of my buddies is Ken Bozak. He's a real good friend of mine in the crypto community, and I always commend him for he's kind of on that wave as well, like all in crypto. And I really commend people like yourself that's taken that leap and really you're living the crypto life, seriously, you know. But it's funny, you're the third person in a row that I've interviewed on a Kicking It session that's been in this game for about 7 years. So we're going to have a great conversation, I think, and I always do with individuals like yourself, because I've been in this space 7 years myself, and it's interesting to see how things have changed. And, you know, maybe we can talk about that for some people who are newer to the space. Bitcoin and crypto hasn't always been the way it is today as far as its ideology. You know, the ethos, I think, has changed a little bit. And you talk about using Bitcoin in a way where you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to go through loops and hoops to you know, get into this ecosystem. That is, the wall to me, Joelle, is closing every day from in that scenario, from, you know, from the standpoint of we can, you know, use it permissionlessly and do all that and be F the banks and all that. It looks like that wall is closing more and more. I mean, of course, we can always mine a coin and I can send it directly to you, right? Or I can get a coin some other way from a faucet or whatever the case may be. But talk about the early days of crypto and help the audience understand how things were back then.
Yeah, so for those of us in the 7-year club might be old timers, but there's times before that. I mean, there's the 2010, 2011 people that just kind of heard about this stuff, maybe bought, like, threw $1,000 in for, like, you know, 50,000 Bitcoins or something like that, and just, you know, lost a bunch on an exchange that went defunct, like all that kind of, all the wild days. But it was definitely something that had no respect back in the day, for sure. No one really thought, everyone thought it was just something people were gambling on for the moment. And the whole idea, of course, was peer-to-peer electronic cash. This is something that you can use to send payments to from people, and especially for microtransactions and things like that. And so a lot of the cool stuff there, because everyone was an evangelist at that point, as far as in the community. Everyone would say, oh, you got to use this. I'll set you up with a wallet here. I'll give you some of my money.
I've done this to so many of my friends.
Yeah, it just was nonstop, you know, put forward. We believe in this stuff. It's going to change the world. And people were also excited to build things around it, where let's say you have some advertisement service that just every time someone clicks on the ad, it automatically sends you like a cent worth of Bitcoin. And then like gambling things, micro tipping.
Gambling was big, man. I don't know how many Bitcoins I've blown on the was it Satoshi Dice or something, where you would just send it from your wallet. Your QT wallet you download from Google. Yeah. And that little crappy wallet, and you send a couple Satoshis to the address, and then hopefully you hear that ka-ching come back to you with more, you know? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more united around, like, everyone in crypto was sort of in it for that. And the whole number go up idea of we're going to make it rich off of this was something that not a lot of people really believed. It was not like for sure. It was definitely
like Trace Mayer would have been maybe the only person back then talking $1 million Bitcoin, like in 2014, 13, I think ish. But I didn't think I was going to get rich off of this. I didn't, man. It was an experiment. And matter of fact, I thought it was expensive then. I think I bought my first Bitcoin at $79.
Yeah.
I thought it was insane that I spent that much on this thing.
Well, I mean, in retrospect, it probably seemed like it because it's something that no one could. You couldn't really use it many places. There, you know, it was still like, who knew what the regulators were going to say about it? Who knew it? You know, it was just so many unknowns, and so it kind of made sense to be, you know, that's not crazy or go that high. But, and also if you use the technology back in the day, like. My first wallet was like a single address wallet, to where you just had one address, and all the stuff that went in there, you could just see your entire history. And then I remember when HD wallets came around, where you got a new address every time you received a transaction. That confused the hell out of me until, you know, I figured it out. But just to see the roughness of the technology sort of progress is So the space is expanded to do a lot more things than just that. There's still a contingent of people that care about living off the stuff. And I think that it's better today than ever, as much as it's not as pure, it's not as maybe fun, it's not as, wild. It's not a lot of that nostalgia stuff is gone, of course. But just from a standpoint of the technology and how far the adoption has come, even though the adoption isn't like so much of a Main Street adoption type thing, it's more of a infrastructural thing. It's come so far that like this is the best time for crypto right now, and it's the best time because it's at the bottom of the bear market, and it's just like you want to ride the wave going up. It's not just about making money on that kind of thing. It's the energy that comes with that. Like it's hard to get people to say, oh wait, look at this cool new thing that got deployed, look at how we fixed this, look at this wallet, it looks so awesome. You can't get people interested if the value's tanking. But if it's starting to go up, there's that sort of momentum behind it, and people start paying attention. And I can't wait for people to start, paying attention to this next wave of innovations that's come out.
Well, that's the thing, and I want to ask you about that, because really you have to look at the crypto industry, to me, in under two different lenses. One being cryptocurrencies, one being more smart contracts, blockchain. Back in the day, we used to call it the big B and the little b. Big Bitcoin and little Bitcoin. There was kind of that differentiation, but it seems like you're more on the side of, and just kind of give me your feedback. Are you more of a cryptocurrency advocate or a blockchain smart contract type of individual? Do you see, or is it both? Can both coexist, and do you see one being bigger than the other?
Yeah, I think both can definitely coexist, and I think that the most important one is the currency aspect.
Oh,
that's the thing that has the most value, because think about it. Everything we do in the world, every technological innovation, everything is all traded with money. Money is everything. And if you don't have money, if you don't have a good money technology, then everything else is just not going to be as good. Now, it doesn't mean that all the other, the rest of the innovations out there are meaningless. But what I think is crypto came out to change the world, and not just, run some better computery things. It came out to essentially upset the old financial system and, completely revolutionize it and make it open to all. And that was, again, probably the largest task you can have in the entire world, is just replacing all the monetary system. And so when you do that, obviously you can't just succeed overnight, and you've run into some bumps. And I think that a lot of people, after running into some kind of issues with that, decided, well, let's focus more on the other areas. Let's focus on stable coins, or let's focus on decentralized finance. Let's focus on smart contracts, which are all interesting innovations and are all good things for the economy, but it's not quite as important as the number one aspect. So I definitely think that no one would care about all the other stuff if it weren't for the decentralized currency bit coming out first.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. It does make sense, and I want to ask you more specifically about Dash in a second. But before we get to that point, I guess let's talk a little bit of economics behind this whole cryptocurrency thing. My stance on everything is, okay, look, most of these cryptocurrencies are what's called deflationary assets, right? There's a limited supply. Therefore, you're going to have an issue with money velocity if this thing scales up. People are not going to be interested in so much using it as so they are storing it and speculating on it from a price perspective. What is your take on that? Because you use this stuff every day. Do you see that as an issue as this thing scales? Like right now, it's okay. It's not a problem. But as you probably know, I don't know if you have a software background or not, but as you scale things, then you start to run into different issues potentially. Yeah. So tell me about that, and then let's talk about Dash. Because Dash is an OG coin too, so I want to talk about that.
Yeah, so anything The thing about like the store value idea is obviously as scarcity increases, right? Then given an equal or increasing demand, then prices will go up. I don't think that that's a guarantee though, unless there's actual demand for the stuff. And so there's always going to that, and that's the thing about like when you go into discussions about price gouging and a whole bunch of other things, is wherever there's a demand, they'll always where there's demand, consumer demand, there's a way. So the primary reason why anyone actually paid money for like what today we call money for Bitcoin back in the day was because it did something for them and had a use. There's some people that just were having fun, but other people saw, hey, I can move this amount of money, this amount of value instantly to some, or close to instantly, to someone halfway across the world very cheaply. That's actually useful. And even today, Bitcoin has a lot of value in large transfers where you can easily transfer like tens of millions of dollars worth, and it goes through relatively quickly, and the fees are not that great from what I would think, but considering the amount, it's not that
they're
bad.
way less than what if you were trying to wire 10 million through your ACH framework. It would cost you tens of thousands of dollars in possibly a day or so.
Yeah,
And
so
filling all this paperwork. So I agree.
there's that, and then there's also like the permanent record that is a blockchain that when you can actually be sure something is stored forever. Everyone can look it up. The public auditability of a network, like that's all useful tool kind of stuff. That's not necessarily related to scarcity or whatnot. So as long as people can derive value from using that, they will use it that way. And so basically, I think that people will always be looking to use it as a payment technology if it works for that. Because think about it. If you want to pay someone and you want to pay them like a 5 cent, kind of like in a 5 cent little increment, and it doesn't matter that it's digital gold or it's valuable in that way, you need to do that, and you're going to find a tool to use that. So if you can't do it efficiently with something like gold or a digital gold, you'll find a different tool, and then then that gets a lot of the attention. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a situation where people don't want to make these kinds of payments. And if you think about it today, if people say store with actual physical gold, like that's their savings, they still need to spend that somehow. And so whether it's you sell it for fiat and then swipe your card or whatever, people still find a way to spend essentially what is their gold, their hodl stash, and they're always going to do the same thing. And so that was kind of the the idea behind, I guess, the Lightning Network was you had this hard to move digital gold stuff, but you're still going to need to spend it somehow and don't want to go through selling it for an inferior money. So, and this so far I don't think that's worked out very well. But yeah, the point being,
I was going to ask you about Lightning. I'm not a fan of it. I think it actually it kind of makes things more centralized in a fashion, in my opinion. What are your thoughts about Lightning Network and the architecture of it?
Yeah, I haven't really been a fan. I'm not nearly technical enough to know all the ins and outs and all the problems that could arise, but it does seem like to a certain extent, a disaster waiting to happen. And more importantly, I've just sat back and watched it develop and watch it not be used, and watch problems crop up and complexity. Ultimately, it really seems like any technology could be useful if you can, leverage it the right way. If it works, it works. And I don't believe in being political about this sort of thing and just saying, "Oh, that's not the way I do things." The thing is, I'm not optimistic about it because I think it's a technology largely created to solve an arbitrary problem, like a problem that doesn't really exist. It's just something you made up. So, for example, with Bitcoin scaling, now I'm not, sort of child-minded where I just think, no, just make the blocks bigger and then that's it, and it's that simple. There's obviously there's a lot of issues with block propagation where you have to make sure that the nodes can actually propagate the blocks to each other very well. And in fact, one of my friends and next door neighbors is a blockchain scaling researcher, and he's published a lot of research on this kind of stuff. So it is definitely tricky to send large blocks and make sure they go to all the nodes and make sure the network can scale. There are some tricks to it, but it is possible to scale. And I think that just especially the 1 megabyte limit, not even 2 or 8 or 12 or whatever it is an extremely arbitrary kind of a number that just we can't move beyond that. We've refused to look at the most obvious solution, so therefore we're going to do something else. And it's I don't think you can, like, if you shut off it, like for example, if you just say I'm going to try to make this automobile run, I'm going to make sure it runs, but I completely reject the idea of a spherical tire. It's got to be a rectangle of some sort, it's got to be a square, it's got to be an octagon, whatever. If you just have that in your brain and then you're like, well, this car doesn't go very fast, it only goes like 20 miles an hour because these clanky octagon shaped wheels I have, it's like, well, of course you're completely cutting out what could be the most logical design way of doing this, and you'll never find the answer if you refuse to have some kind of data on the table.
Yeah, I think increasing the block size, even doing twice as much would have given us enough time to figure out a better solution, and you can, there are all type of conspiracy theories about why blockstream and all that, but it's just unfortunate. Now, kind of segueing from into Dash, why Dash? Why are you such an advocate for Dash? Why do you think Dash hasn't gained the traction that maybe it should have by this point? Let's talk a little bit about Dash.
Yeah, so the why is pretty easy to trace. It's because I was living all off of Bitcoin in 2016, no bank account, and then by the end of the year, stuff started to not work for me. I mean, you can't wait for an hour, walk around the shopping mall for your confirmation before you can get out of there. I had to skip lunch a few times because it just didn't go through in time. Like, well, I guess I can't pay, I can't eat, and it was starting to get pretty hard for me. And then at that point, I just realized I can't keep doing this. I got to find an alternative. And at that point, you can just be either I abandon this experiment and go back to my bank and say, please, can I have my account back? I'm going back to the fiat world. Or I can try to still make it work. And I decided to try to still make it work. And then you just go down the list on, say the CoinMarketCap list. You start at the top. Nope, I can't do that. Bitcoin doesn't work. Ethereum still being, not really money, kind of being used for other things. It's probably not going to work out. And then, Litecoin was like out, I think almost out of the top 10. It was pretty, it was abandoned at that point. Bitcoin Cash didn't exist.
Still
Bitcoin
had Doge, man. Doge was...
Yeah, but that was way down there. So literally the top that I could settle on, like the only other thing I could probably do was Dash. And, I started using Dash for, a few months. And I managed to keep going. And now I think it's probably the easiest thing to live off of today, which is, what I do. And, after a few months of just doing, starting to get my income in Dash from other sources, I worked for Dash for about 3 years. And it's still it's one of those things of where, what if you're hung up on the idea of Bitcoin? Like a lot of people fell in love with it. Sure, I did too. But you're hung up on something, or you have these ideas of what, at some point you got to test them out. So as far as traction, so there's probably, it's more of a half and half game, I would say. First off, half of it is, I don't think it's gotten the attention it deserves compared to a lot of other projects. On the other half, it definitely has gotten the adoption it deserves, and that just isn't priced in the market. And one of the easiest kind of examples of this is the library platform, which has been around for almost 5 years, I guess. And just the library.tv, which got launched, at the end of last year, the kind of YouTube-like front-facing, semi-centralized version, the consumer-friendly, the noob-friendly version, is now in March got over 1 million views, over 1 million visitors. So it's one of the most used blockchain projects out there right now. And yet, if you look at the CoinMarketCap rankings, I don't know where it is. It's got done better recently, but back in March when I started heavily using it, it was like, fifth, sixth page of CoinMarketCap, way down there. And it's like, oh, that's just a third tier shitcoin that like no one cares about. It's dead. That's what you would think. But it's like one of the most actually used by actual people blockchain projects in existence. And so that's just sort of the same way. There's, it got so many, there was thousands of merchants in Venezuela alone that accepted it. The Venezuelan Petro digital currency is actually a copy of Dash because of that. And
yeah, I heard. Yep, I did. That you're right. I forgot about that.
The statistics show that it's much more likely to be used for regular payments than just about any other coin. It's you can't really tell because these are decentralized networks, of course, right? But if you look at, for example, what is the median transaction value as opposed to and compare it to the average and things, it tends to look like regular small payments. Whereas you get something, like Bitcoin or Litecoin even, it tends to be large transfers. And if you go something like Bitcoin SV, it tends to be almost all microtransactions, almost all fractions of a cent. And then if you do something like Bitcoin Cash, it's kind of a mix between larger transfers and then like little payment style, like app style transactions. And so you can actually look at the data and kind of make inferences. And as far as people who actually like live off the stuff, who do it, for what it's for, you'd have to actually, it's one of those things that's very difficult to prove, but I think it's made some giant strides. In fact, it's going to be very illuminating because I'm doing this thing called the Fiat-free challenge, which
I saw that on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, which essentially, I've been living the Fiat-free challenge for years. And basically I want people to try it with me for a month, for the whole month of May, spend everything you can in crypto and see how far you can get. Might be like 30% of your stuff you can buy in crypto you just never knew about. Might be all of it. I'm pretty confident most people in the more developed world could probably get it to 100% if they care to try, actually try hard. And I think that a lot of people, that's where like the adoption thing, like there's very few people like me doing exactly what I'm doing. There's like me and Ken Bozak and a few others. But I think just about everyone can. There's a lot of people that can get a lot farther. And I think if more people woke up to
Joelle, the thing is, man, a lot of people can, but I don't think, and I'm in this camp, I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to spend, because I'm thinking that there's going to be a huge wealth transfer at some point down the line, right? And so if I spend these very precious digital bytes right now, I'm going to miss out on a lot of that transfer. If we just get a little spillover from the corrupt Wall Street regime and money from that aspect, we could see Bitcoin and a lot of these altcoins orders of magnitudes higher in price. So what would be your answer to that?
So my answer to that basically is the only reason that's, if you believe in that, if you believe that's going to happen, you should probably be all in, except for whatever you need to pay your bills. Now, if you could pay your bills with this stuff, that's more rotting, dirty fiat that you don't actually have to own. So it's not like there's a finite amount of crypto you can hold, and then when you spend it, it's just gone and you can't get it back. It just, if you use it as a tool, you can still keep the same amount. And especially if you can even, if you're worried about that stuff, you can even calculate, just say, all right, this is what I have in crypto today. This is what I feel comfortable in having invested in. And that's just, I'm not going to touch that. That's untouchable crypto. And then whatever you're using to pay your bills, it's fiat, that's spending crypto. And you keep them completely separate. And then you don't have to actually lose out or lose part of your stash, your saving stash. You can keep doing that. And there's kind of another feeling. First off, when people dive into this stuff, people using this stuff will get other people to notice it. More traction will get more people to take notice and buy in or whatever. So by being one of those people, and everything's personal, right? It's like you read articles, you see videos, it's like it's easy to dismiss it. But if it's your friend or relative, it's like, oh yeah, my brother, my cousin, he lives entirely off of this stuff. It's like that makes it real for people. It makes them much more likely to get involved. And so that makes the flippening of fiat to crypto much more likely to actually happen if you're actively participating in it. But here's the real reason, right? I don't know if you pay attention to the markets when this whole pandemic thing started to happen.
Yeah,
but
I did.
Everything fell off a cliff.
Well, we went pretty much correlation went near 1 with the equity markets, and it still is, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
we're still near 1 in correlation with positive correlation with the equities.
So everything crashed, and then gold didn't at first, and then it kind of took a dip. And which means it's more of a safe haven asset. The problem is people wanted cash, and not just dollars, but physical cash. They were restricting ATM withdrawals. There was banks running out of cash to give people because people wanted something that they were scared. They wanted something that they were sure could buy their essentials. And guess what? That wasn't crypto for them. So what I'm worried about is the same kind of a thing happening when you have mass devaluation and then the currency starts to collapse. And I mean, I lived through the peso crisis in Mexico in the 90s, and it was in Romania when they were just shedding their old currency and things like that. This is pretty real, just because in the first world, we don't really, kind of the idea of the dollar collapsing is more like, oh, shut up, Peter Schiff. It's like, just because it's like that doesn't mean it couldn't really happen. And it, like, we're on track for that. And it's not just going to be, are you going to, what happens? You have this big store of like gold bullion and a bunch of Bitcoin on some treasures and stuff. And then what happens? How are you going to buy groceries with that? I mean, you might be in a really bad position. And I don't want people to be vulnerable like that. I don't like seeing people with their lives ruined. I don't like seeing people desperate. So I'd like to get people to at least experiment with how you can spend this stuff so that if there is some sort of collapse, you don't actually need to be scrambling for dollars for anything. You can just, keep living as it is. And so it's kind of it's an insulation kind of a thing, because I don't want to see people who know better, people who know that the old system is not meant to last, just still relying on it and suffering when the old system collapses. And they're like, well, I don't know. I've always swiped my credit card. I don't know how to pay for stuff now. I don't know how to buy groceries now.
Yeah, no, you bring up great points, and you're right. And I said this when this whole thing started happening. Many people were kind of shocked that Bitcoin didn't live up to its safe haven, theory, right? And I was like, no, Bitcoin is a speculative asset, just like all the rest of this stuff out here. When stuff hits the fan and you need to liquidate, you're going to go into cash. You're going to go in more sophisticated scenarios. You're going to go into treasuries, which is a cash almost equivalent, very close to cash, right? M2 or whatever. But people aren't going to rush into a speculative asset. It's just not the case. So, yeah, I agree with you there. I guess my question, and forgive me for not being like all the way up on Dash, is Dash an inflationary cryptocurrency? Does it have a unlimited cap on supply?
It's actually more scarce than Bitcoin.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's not somewhere around 18 or 19 million is going to be the ultimate supply, as opposed to 21 million. Basically the way it works is it has a 21 million hard cap, but every time you submit a proposal is submitted to the Treasury to ask for money, you have to burn 5 Dash just to, as an anti-spam feature, to ask for money from the decentralized Treasury. And also every single time that the Treasury is not spent, like the budget, like say you got enough money to pay for a few projects, you got some left over and you don't spend it, whatever leftover is not created. And so then that's just like less of the final supply. So that's why it's a little bit more flexible, but the estimates are somewhere around 18 to 19 million total by the end of things.
So, wow. I mean, that's interesting, man. I just, to me, I would think I would look at Dash as something I want to just hold. I just want to hodl because
Well, you can do both.
I know that, yeah, I mean, yeah, but I know that there's a potential that this coin will be, the market will look at it as a limited supply type of coin in the future as things kind of ramp up. But let me ask you. I wanted to ask you about, of course, Dash, but also I think I wanted to talk about stable coins. And before I do that, let's talk about how do you see, okay, basically what elements in the traditional consumer market or industry that we have now with like Cash App and Venmo and all those types of applications, how do you see that playing into things? Do you think consumers are going to get confused? And because it's easy to trend now, we have, back in 7 years ago, we didn't have a Venmo, we didn't have a Cash App, right? So the concept of kind of like cashless, I'll just send you some money and it gets there instantly. I personally know kind of about the inner workings of a Cashmo. Venmo is not a bank account, actually. It's a lot of software layers on top of each other that's moving money around. But what do you think? Like, do you think those types of apps are hindering or delaying the adoption of Dash, Bitcoin, whatever the cryptocurrency of your choice?
I do think that they're competing, and I don't know if I don't think that that's necessarily delaying the adoption. I think it's making sure the adoption comes correct. You know, that the adoption is worthwhile, not like, oh, we're going to use this ugly long cryptographic hash and copy and paste all this stuff, and then that's just not going to work in the long term. And so, Dash has something called Dash Platform, which is out on testnet, and it's hopefully going to be on mainnet in a couple months, which basically adds blockchain usernames to where you can friend people on the blockchain with this simple readable username and just send to that username over and over again. And, basically make it a Venmo style experience, but for crypto and not through some centralized third party app that does it, just, on the blockchain layer itself. And so that's something I'm very much looking forward to, because that should make it better. Now, the thing about payment apps is there's always going to be issues with them when you really dig down into it. For example, what was it? Venmo got busted for basically making everyone's transactions public by default. So every time you buy something with Venmo, it posts it on Facebook, or you can just go in and look at your friends.
That's the most retarded. I don't use Venmo. That's the craziest thing ever, bro.
Yeah, just because they might learn their lesson and not do that doesn't mean that they don't keep doing that. There's always going to be, like, that's why I like the OG sort of crypto screed of, not your keys, not your crypto, deflationary, the government can't touch this, permissionless, censorship resistant, all that stuff. No one cares, but
that's what I was gonna say.
But then they do. No one cares about it's like religious dogma you're speaking. Like, no one really cares until, but what they do care is the after effects of that. They do care, this money is not tanking in value while the dollar is. And they don't need to care why that it's because people are printing the dollar and they're not really printing Bitcoin or Dash or anything else, or at least to a very much slower rate. They just know that it's tanking. They don't need to know censorship resistance. They don't need to know all that stuff. If they just know I can get an account and just send money anywhere, and I don't have to do this waiting period while they take a picture of my ID and, I happen to be, I'll paraphrase a friend's story, happen to be going through a divorce, and therefore one cannot open a bank account because you don't have a permanent address that has received mail yet or anything like that. So they just won't let you have access to financial services. And now you just can't get a bank account or a Venmo or something like that. And then it's like, okay, well, this crypto stuff, I can just get it. Like, I don't need to worry about that. Or say people want to do something like, buy weed, and you can't really do that with credit card kind of services, which, by the way, there is a company called Alt36 that's mostly operated in the west of the country that uses Dash as a payment rail in between cannabis transactions. And I think it's the only online ordering delivery cannabis service right now that's functioning. and use the crypto. So there's always going to be things that make this more attractive, even though and it all comes down to the principles, but it's like the translation of the principles is why. And there's just always going to be some sign up process, or there's going to be a hack and everyone's going to lose their money on the whole platform, because unless you're some kind of a whale, no one's paying attention to your crypto stash. If you just have a little bit, they're going after exchanges, they're going after the big players. And if everything is run through like the Venmo, someone's going to be trying to get in there and try to mess up everyone's money. And it's just much, less risky to use crypto. So all these kinds of things are going to translate into a user experience kind of thing. And then people will always want to use the thing that works better for them.
Gotcha. I mean, one thing I would say though, and I saw a tweet and I actually retweeted this a few days ago. I got a lot of feedback from this. I think it was from this guy called Bill Gates Shill or something. I forgot his name.
Shill Gates.
Shill Gates. That's
Shill
it.
Gates is one crypto Twitter person I've seen.
Yeah, but he brings up a point, and I'm going to try to find this really quickly, but he brings up a point about how the legacy system is in some way better because there's a redundancy as far as the insurance layer on that, the FDIC, and if your money gets stolen, then you could get your money back and all of that stuff. And I asked my audience, what do you think about this? And when I ask you, what do you think about that tweet? And I'm going to find it here in a second.
Yeah, well, basically, the established systems are, guess what? Established. There's, many layers of guarantees and things like that.
Yeah, someone hacked into my bank account. My bank completely froze the account and no money was allowed to be transacted. Even if it had been stolen, it's all 100% insured and I would have been reimbursed. Bank bashing is dumb. I fucking love my bank. Bitcoin doesn't solve this.
Well, there's a couple. I mean, it's a good, fun little dose of realism. But
yeah.
So what happened when I finally got rid of my bank account, because I was still using it to cash out some Bitcoin and pay for things. I was going to go pay rent, and all of a sudden I noticed I had a several $1,000s negative balance. I was like, how did this happen?
Wow.
And it turns out someone somewhere in Florida, of all places, just scribbled some stuff on some check and used it to buy a car. And wow. I even saw the picture of it, and it was did not resemble my signature, my name, anything. Just someone somehow found the bank account number and just said, yeah, I authorize, and just cleaned out all my money. It's what, you let this loser just scribble some random things on a piece of paper and just take away everything I had. And of course it was several days on the phone waiting with the fraud department, all this kind of stuff. And then eventually got it back. And then I was at that point was able to, they just closed the account and they said, you want to reopen one? I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm done forever with the system. And it's a safe thing. I mean, I don't think that personal crypto stash hacks will happen anywhere near as often as you see say bank fraud and things like that. But also, what's to stop you from having some kind of insurance on what you have? I mean, insurance, anything can be insured. You can spend a few bucks a year on hacking insurance or whatever like that, and at that point you still have access to all your money. You still don't have someone can just shut down your account and take it all out or whatever, or basically you have a much better experience, and you can actually get insurance too. And so when we start talking about, I mean, I wonder how much this Shill Gates is going to love his bank when he's desperate to buy toilet paper, and they won't let him get his money out because cash limit and stuff like that. Or a lot of times, I mean, that's the worst part about it is they can just clean out your account. And of course, when you get conspiratorial, and if you're a political dissident or something, it becomes a lot more obvious. But even for regular people, I lived on very limited means for many years, and there's nothing quite like the stress of looking into your bank account balance and not knowing what you're going to find. Yeah. Because with a bank, they could just take stuff out. You don't need to have permission. People can
absolutely
just
yeah,
take
you can
out
have
whatever
garnish.
They want.
Yeah, you can all liens and all types of stuff. That's true.
Yeah,
that is an aspect that with the crypto wallet. you're your own. You literally are your own bank if you have your keys, right? If you have your access to your own keys, you are your own bank, and no one can take that money or freeze it or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not just like sinister or huge. It's also the small things, like a gym membership that just keeps charging you, and then you tell them not to, and then they forget to process your request, and you're still paying for another, however long.
By the way, that's happened here in Michigan. A couple of my friends, they charged their. It wasn't gym. It was their cigar club. It had a cigar box, and they kept charging them even though the place was closed. So
yeah, and then the whole system is built on being able to like take money from you without your permission.
yeah,
Now with crypto, when it starts to become more, a smoother experience, they will be able to send invoices to your username or whatever over and over. But you don't have to pay them. I mean, you can't, if it's actual service, it's actual something that you agreed to pay for, you probably should, right? But at least it's like on your terms. It's like, okay, I'm going to pay this now. Or for example, sometimes you have an issue where you get a whole bunch of bills, you can't pay them all right now, but you want to be able to prioritize. And of course,
right.
If it's an auto debit, then you just now all of a sudden you can't pay your rent because your Netflix hit you over the line, and then
it's it's a domino effect. I've heard of people, going in the whole hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars in fees that these banks are taking from these individuals. It's just it's crazy. It's getting out of hand. It really is getting out of hand. And I've got so much I want to talk to you about, but I don't want to go on forever. I can talk for hours listening. Yeah. But what are your thoughts about stable coins? I personally think after years of being in this game, this crypto industry, I came to the realization that honestly, as you stated, the normal I'm thinking of the masses. I try to not think of us. We're kind of like in an echo chamber in many instances. I'm trying to think about the normal Joe six-pack that doesn't know about the Federal Reserve and the Jekyll from Creature Island and all that crap. Maybe not crap, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. To them it is, right? They don't care about all that stuff. They just want something easy they can use. And I said, wow, I think the easiest adoption of crypto, honestly, is a stable coin. Initially. Yeah. What are your thoughts about stable coins? They're the most used coin in crypto. So let's talk about that really quickly.
Yeah. I'm kind of a stablecoin minimalist.
Okay.
Here's the thing. They have value as a tool, and the reason why a stablecoin even exists is to basically, to a certain extent, break the law without getting in trouble. Because basically people wanted to move in and out of dollars while trading.
Yep.
And they didn't want to go through all that AML KYC stuff. They didn't want to get the banks involved and all those kinds of things. So they just had a digital token that it's exempt from the same rules, because it's not considered money because it isn't. But it kind of does the same thing. And it just as a trading tool of like, here, my Bitcoin went up 100 times. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm going to move it all out into fiat. So then as soon as it goes down again, I can go buy back in and get more.
Can I be honest with you? Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off. It's actually better than cash, even like digital cash, real fiat cash in banks, because it's the same scenario. Like I can have a whole bunch of stablecoin, USDC or whatever's your flavor. I can have that in my own wallet, on an Ethereum wallet, and no one can seize it. It still retains that $1 value. We know that it loses purchasing power over time for sure, but they can't seize it, right? They can't do any of that stuff. It's like a bank account without having a bank account.
Yeah, sort of. Now, it's a valuable tool for traders, especially. That's the biggest thing. And then now it's been expanded to other sorts of usage. I think it's a great training wheel, if you will, for getting actual crypto adopted more far and wide. But first off, if the law treated stable coins the way they did fiat currency directly, then I think that their value would collapse overnight. They almost be a ghost town instantly.
Agreed.
So it's
And
basically,
it's easy for them to do because there's a central point of failure there.
It's just it is just a legal loophole, and so exploit the loophole while it's there. But I don't think you build a future economy on that. Now the other thing is, first off, the entire point of crypto, the first point was to do uncensorable payments, and the second one ended up being money that's resistant to inflation and all those kinds of things that happen. Now if you're pegging it to the very thing you meaning to avoid, that's not a long-term thing the way I view it. The way I view it, it's like a shorter-term thing. It's like, well, we're still new to this space. It still have lots of volatility. You don't want to lose everything in a giant 90% crash. You want to okay, I understand that, but long-term, you shouldn't be using this stuff because it's going down in value while everything is trending up. Everything solid is trending up. And to a certain extent, I mean, I would probably rather have fiat currency than fake fiat currency. And what I tend to call, and of course there's a million different stablecoin implementations, but as far as Tether specifically, I tend to call it fiat because it's not, so the fiat dollars are already basically based on nothing, and can be inflated at will. Now Tether, for example, is supposed to be backed partially by dollars in the bank, but not entirely. And they're
like 70-something%.
Yeah, and so it's like a 70% dollar. So it should be worth 70% of a dollar. But then, of course, there haven't been audits to actually prove that it's there to begin with. It's basically like a shaky house of cards built on a shaky house of cards as well. And there have been a few other. Didn't DAI become insolvent or something like that recently?
When the crash, the Ethereum crash.
And so that's the thing, is it's all kind of like a shell game on a certain
now that level. Is another whole topic, and I don't know how much you know about the whole decentralized DeFi. That's a new wave. I'm a little skeptical of that whole thing. I don't know, man. And we saw a little glimpse of it in this last crash. You know, I don't know how sustainable that is, or if they're going to make changes. It's new. I know it's all new, so they're going to learn from, different scenarios. You can't code everything out and be perfect, but
yeah, that's one of those things where it has value because regular old fi has value. The old financial system has value, and you're just thinking, how can I do it more efficiently and trust fewer people? The problem, and this has been one of those reasons I've sort of, I'm kind of watching things like Ethereum from a distance more, is because I see immense potential, and I also see immense possibilities for things to go horribly wrong. And just like the DAO hack, and just like there have been, if you just Google Ethereum hack, it's just like
a lot of
pages and pages and pages, and they never stop coming. And it doesn't mean that Ethereum's garbage, it just means it's complicated. Whenever you have a complicated system, it's easy to find an exploit. And so I don't know. I mean, can you imagine you having to have DeFi insurance to where you have you're insured against your contract going horrifically wrong? Like if you can create a, well, that's what I'm saying.
That money.
If you could do something like that, then you can start to make a little bit more progress. But I think it's going to be. It's a little bit the flavor of the month right now that everyone's getting excited about, and it does have a lot of potential. We'll see how reliable it is and how much better it ends up being than old school traditional finance. And I think there'll always be elements to that. But, I think it's also funny that people are trying to do decentralized finance, which is extremely complicated. And then they're kind of like sleeping on just decentralized money. They're like, that was kind of like, that was old school. We don't care about that anymore. It's like, well, it's more valuable and it's less likely to be screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree, man. I'm definitely going to have you back on, Joelle, to get an update on your crypto living. That's awesome. I really commend you. People like you, Ken Bozak, my guy, keep doing what you do. And where can people find you online currently? I know you have the and I have to do this. I have to get on library, port all my videos over there. I think I already have an account, just never did it. But I see you're on library. Tell us a little bit about that movement.
Yeah, so first off, look for the hashtag Fiat-free challenge. It's not only me, but you'll find a lot of my stuff there right now because it just inspirational things of people actually trying to live off of crypto. It's gonna be great. My own stuff, I'm at the Desert Links on Twitter. That's links is in cat and desert is in dry place. And I'm the same on Cointree, cointr.ee, which is just like a link tree plus crypto donation addresses. It just has like all your stuff in one spot. And my kind of personal / political / rant channel on YouTube and library, lbry.tv, is also the Desert Links. Now, Digital Cash Network is where I do all my crypto stuff under. So if you look at that, it's on library, it's on YouTube. It's also on a few of the different blogging platforms like Public 0x and things like that. Yeah, you'll be able to find it all over.
Nice. So it looks like did you have Roger Ver on?
Yeah.
For free?
He has a nice endorsement of the Fiat-free challenge at the beginning of that. He basically just says that he thinks people should do a limitless Fiat-free challenge for the rest of your life.
Nice. So yeah, check out that hashtag, guys. And yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on, and we need more people like you to help the adoption. I just think, we gotta get the regular Joe six-pack to really get involved here, and any and everything helps. So appreciate you coming on, and ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and comment in the section below on this video. Let Joelle and I know what you think about cryptos, stable coins, Dash. Tell us about Dash. Give us your feedback on that in the comments below. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for joining another Kicking It session. It's your boy Crypto Blood. I'm out of here. Holla!